Alrighty, well, hello everyone, and welcome to episode 5
Oh,
of the
I don't
Coffee
know.
with My Dad.
It's another episode.
Another episode, and today is just me, Ben, and my father. So welcome.
All right, let's do it. Dude, I don't have any coffee.
I don't either. I don't have any coffee beans with me here at the office. All I have is Red Bull, and I figured it's 4 o'clock, probably too late for some Red Bull.
We did, you and Derek and I, and a little while ago, and I was drinking, even if that was like a half shot of espresso, I should not have had it that late in the day. So it's got to be decaf for me when we're doing them late in the afternoon.
That's fair, yeah.
Hey, you know what? I want to talk. Can I start a topic?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
So you were telling me recently about, I knew you had read Book of Mormon, and you recently talked about reading the Quran. Now, Tell me more about that. Like, why are you doing that?
Yeah, so as you know, you're my dad. Like, I grew up in a Christian household, right? I grew up learning about Jesus, learning about Christianity, what it meant to be a Christian and go to church, and all that stuff. And truthfully, I never did a good job of listening to you guys, and I was just kind of lived my life of like, yeah, I'm sure Jesus is great, but I can do this myself. I'm good. I don't need him. Like, I'm doing my own thing.
You and every teenager that's ever walked the earth, I think, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But when I like truly met the Lord, like, as you know, like, I had like kind of a Damascus Road moment, like a very dramatic end to myself and beautiful, awakening to who the Lord really is. And when I really met Jesus, I felt for the longest time, I felt like he was different than what I had heard of. Like, I felt that the Jesus that I was encountering and that I was learning about through the Bible, through his word, and through him was different than kind of what I'd ever experienced before. And for me, that became my truth, right? I was like, this is legit, this is real, right? And then I go off to Bible school, and in just evangelism, I met people of different faith. I met Muslims, Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, like, you name them, and
in Bible school?
In Bible school, because not in school I'd meet them, but in outreach. We would do like evangelistic outreach.
Got it. Yeah. Okay.
No, in Bible school, we all have the same belief.
Yeah.
But in outreach, specifically on outreach, every week I'd run into the same group of Mormons. They were doing the same thing we were on this college campus. They were out preaching their gospel, sharing their faith. And it was probably like 6 or 7 weeks in a row that I ran into them. And the first 2 weeks was me just arguing with them. Just like, you're wrong. Like, you're wrong, really? I'm right type conversation. Yeah. And eventually, like, after the second time talking to them, driving home, I had a moment with the Lord where I was like, okay, like, why am I right and they're wrong? Like, I'm 100% convinced that I'm right. They're 100% convinced that they are right. But the Jesus I serve claims to be God.
Yeah.
The Jesus they serve isn't God. So who's right? Because if I'm wrong and they're right, then I want the truth. I want to follow the truth. Right? Like, how am I any different than Paul when he was Saul? Because Saul went out as a Torah scholar, preaching the one true God, converting as many people as he could, and then he had a moment, Damascus, Road, where things changed for him. And so for me, like, in talking to the Mormons, they always were like, just read the Book of Mormon, just read it then, right? So like, okay, like, I'll read it, and at the end of me reading it, we got to sit down and we got to talk about like what I read and stuff.
That's interesting, because as a Christian, we would tell somebody the same thing, right? Just just open the Bible, just read the Bible, just read it for yourself. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Keep going.
Yeah. No, you're good. Yeah, that's a good point. But so I read through it. I read through it all the way up until it's like the second to last book. It starts with an A. I always forget what it's called, but basically it says that Jesus was born in Jerusalem, even though he was born in Bethlehem. And for like the everyday Christian, you might not think much of it. Like they don't think much of it, but Jerusalem and Bethlehem back then, like historically, were like separated two different places. So that's a discrepancy that was like too big. I was like, I'm not moving forward with this. It's like I've read most of the Book of Mormon. There's enough discrepancies by now, and we had that talk. But leaving that, like, and having that discussion, I realized like just how important it was not to be like faith is not having this like I'm right, everybody else is wrong. This is my faith, Like I don't believe that's true faith, right? Faith is being firm in what you believe, right? With I forgot what Hebrews says, but like without like true like evidence right in front of you. Faith isn't just like I'm right. It's not stubbornness, So when I had that heart shift of just like really like just going after understanding, that opened doors in conversations with people and just in my own heart, right? Because then, like, I grew in my faith in the Lord after reading the Book of Mormon, after spending hours on the Jehovah's Witness website on jw.org, and now reading the Quran. It's just increasing my faith in the Lord, and it's now I'm having conversations with Muslims that are just these beautiful conversations instead of these hardcore debates. Because the reality is, like, these people, like, although we as Christians, it's so easy to look at them like, oh, they're lost and they're deceived and shame on them, yada yada. Like, no, these are like they're good people. Most of them, like good people with good hearts that were just sheep led astray, right?
Yeah.
And like they're not bad people. They don't understand, And so it's that's why I'm reading it. Is because it's just important to be open minded, not in to go the other side, but open minded. It's just a good thing to do. Maybe you have better language than I do to that.
Yeah. No, I think I'm really proud of you. Just as your dad, I'm super proud of you for having that mindset. Daniel and Derek and I were having a conversation episodes back, and we were talking about the importance of, somehow it came up, like knowing why we believe what we believe is super critical. Not just because, like, or as a teenager, because my mom and dad said so, or because even as an adult, because the pastor said so, or because the person behind the pulpit said so. Like, why do we believe that? Why did they say that? And what's behind that? And is that, like, can I reconcile that with things that I also know to be true? Or, and there's just so many things. My mind is just racing right now with so many examples in our society right now. I guess we really don't have to look very far of people that just, they take us instantly. The defensive walls go up anytime something that does not align with what they believe. The defenses go up, and they're not open to hearing or seeing the other side and understanding it. And that just so much polarization, partisanship in politics, polarization on the street corner, like all kinds of things that just the simple take a breath. Let me understand your side for a minute would help, right? Because we probably would find that we're more alike, like in your conversations with people of other faiths. So there are some serious doctrinal differences, but as you talk with them, you probably found things that were more in common than you actually realized. Yeah?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a Jehovah's Witness I used to work with, and him and I are good friends. Like, it's kind of like strange to say, but like genuinely, like we're like good friends. And although there was some serious stuff that we totally disagreed upon, there were other things, like even in scripture, that like we had beautiful conversations about. Like just like when it, like I remember one time we had a conversation just outside my office here about like the significance of the Lord's death, right? Of just like because one thing for them as Jehovah's Witness, they like first off, they don't believe that he died on a cross. They believe he died on a stake. But like one thing he said, he was like, it breaks his heart. He wasn't mad. He wasn't going after anyone, but it genuinely like saddened him. It broke his heart. Like just the way people walk around with a cross, right? Or with like for him when they saw like people wearing a cross, or another example, like any like tattoos of Jesus' face or something, right? It like grieved him almost. Like it saddened him because like the significance and the reverence for Jesus was lost. Right? And so that's something that like we've had many conversations about, you know. Or another, oh my gosh, I totally forgot about this. There's a good friend of mine in Florida, my roommate Sebastian, his brother is like very devout Greek Orthodox.
Okay.
And I would drive from Orlando to Tampa just to go have lunch with him because we would talk about like, the conversations we had. Like we had disagreements. Like he was Greek Orthodox to the core, right? And like there's a lot we disagreed upon, but our conversations never led into what we disagreed upon. It always led into what we did agree on. And we would talk for like 3 hours sometimes. And me being a charismatic, you know, Christian who just loves Jesus, and him being Greek Orthodox who's just grounded in tradition, we still had hours of just like beautiful conversation. And now he's a dear friend that like a year later I still talk to like every other month or so.
Yeah,
so,
that's awesome.
Yeah, I forgot about him. That's great. Yeah.
That's cool. That's really cool. Now he's going to watch your podcast. He's like, Ben, you forgot about me?
I know. Yeah. Actually, he doesn't watch YouTube, so he will never watch it.
He doesn't watch YouTube?
Mm-mm.
Oh.
No.
Well, like, you can catch us. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple. We're in a lot of places now.
That's a good plug.
It just came up. How about that?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's great.
So look, separating some of the major doctrinal issues between Christians, Mormons, Jehovah's Witness, etc. Just the practice of, regardless of whether or not it's religion or whether or not it's anything else, the practice of seeking to understand the other side. Yeah. There's so much power in that. And okay, I have another thought. As a Christian, I have often said something similar to what you said. Like, what if I'm not right? And I actually have challenged a lot of people, telling them, I think we're going to get to heaven and we're going to be really surprised who's there and who's not there.
Yeah.
Right? And when we go home and when we meet our Maker, when we come face to face with the Lord, I really honestly do believe, well, I'll be surprised if we actually care anymore. But if we were to care, I would be really shocked. I won't be really shocked to find out how misinterpreted we have made everything. Like, just, we've got our version of how it works based on what the scripture says and the references that we have, but our real understanding, probably short of what the truth is. I mean, I'm just thinking about the disciples, how many times they misunderstood and got things wrong, and they're literally sitting right there with him. Right?
Yeah.
So how much more likely are we to maybe miss it 2,000 some years later, right? Reading text that's been rewritten and reinterpreted several times at least.
Yeah.
But it just speaks to how important it is to be open-minded. Like you said, we don't have to be open-minded in a way that says, okay, I'm open-minded. Sure, change my belief. Maybe we go into it with the curiosity to say, hey, maybe I will find that my belief has been changed. But being open-minded doesn't mean that I have to agree with you or that I have to agree with them. But I can be open-minded enough to at least hear what they have to say without being defensive. I guess that just keeps coming up in my mind. I don't know why.
Yeah. So for you, like, like a phrase I love, and this is just, you know, been behind closed doors. I don't ever really go out in public and say this, but like the term like modern Pharisee is something I kind of just like, I used to have it hung up in my office on the door here. Like, do I really love God, or am I just a modern Pharisee? So like for you, like where where's the balance of not being a modern Pharisee but having faith?
The balance is in knowing that if I'm sincere enough and I honestly want to make the effort to, and I do put myself aside, I can hear directly from the Holy Spirit. And I don't have to go by what I read I'm supposed to do. I can literally be led by Him right now. Yeah. And people that are not able to do that have to. They have no other choice but to be led by what has been written down, right? What's been recorded as the way you're supposed to do it. And I think there's a danger in that. Sure, there are things that are written down that we know. Like, look, what we know. So funny, Mom and I had this conversation earlier today. We know there are things that the Lord wants us to do, God's will. We also know there are things He does not want us to do, also His will. Yeah. Then there's things in between. Maybe He's silent on, right? Yeah. It's not written down anywhere. So what do I have to go by in those moments to make that decision, to make that choice? I literally have to check in with Him. I have to be like honest and open and hear His voice when He has something to say to me about it. Like there's lots of decisions that we make that I don't think the Lord ever doesn't care, but it's really not like if I choose red or blue shirt today, I don't know, like if He cares all that much every day which shirt that I wear. Perhaps there's a reason He would want me to on some day, and that's what I have to be listening to, right? But in those, so am I answering your question for you? Kind of being led by the Spirit of God more than being led by the rules that have been written down is how maybe what I just said is how not to be a modern Pharisee. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, which is great, and I think there's a lot of truth in it, right? Because also, like, for me, the fine line is where your heart's at, right? Like, if you're in love with God, right, then it's going to look like another thing. But if it's not love, but it's fear or it's tradition because that's the way you grew up, right? Then your motive, the choices you make are completely different because your motive is completely different. Yep. And instead of because and in the Bible school I went to, they were very romantic, which I personally love. Like, they were very romantic in their relationship with God. Yes, right? They are. And so, and so like they would go to the shirt, right? And instead of like, okay, Lord, is it the red shirt or the blue shirt, right? Like, they would ask the question to the Lord of, okay, Lord, like, do you like the red shirt more or the blue shirt more? Like, which one can I wear that's going to please you? Which is something that just, like, I don't do that, but, like, I think it's beautiful, though, because I'd rather have a heart of, like, Lord, like, I just want to please you. Which color shirt's going to please you, even though it's, that example's a little off the deep end, That's a lot better than I'm wearing the red shirt because, and I'm going to say something that might be a little, people might not like a lot, so forgive me, right? Okay. But sticking to the analogy of, I can't wear the blue shirt. I'm wearing the red shirt because the blue shirt's gonna hurt my witness, and I can't preach the gospel in the blue shirt as well as when I wear the red shirt. All right, and that's just that's a concept that I didn't grow up in, but I grew up seeing, and when I left for college, I saw a lot of. And it deterred me from really caring about God, and I've seen it deter other people. That just the attitude's different, right? Because now, do I actually love God, or am I just in love with what I can do for God?
Right. Or am I in love with the idea of what God can do for me? Yeah. Because let's face it, there's a lot of people in the Christian world that's really where they're at. If we really boil it down, they're in love with the idea of what God can do for them and what they get by being a good Christian than they are actually in Him and having a relationship with Him.
Yeah. that's when I read Matthew 7:22 and that revelation hit me. It scared the wits out of me.
Yeah.
And I remember this day in Bible school where the pastor was speaking to us students, and he was talking about this topic, and he just stops and he goes, "If you're just pursuing God for His blessing, you're playing the harlot, and you're as good as gone to hell." And it was just, the whole room was just silent. You could hear a pin drop in this room of 600 people.
I don't want him to know he just called me out.
Exactly.
Right?
Right? But, yeah. But also like for anybody watching this, like I really hope that like they don't take this as like, oh my God, like, oh crap, what am I doing? But like take this as like an invitation from the Lord to step out of that and step into life. Like be as kind of hard as this was for me to hear at first, right? So I can only imagine anybody watching this how hard it could be for them. Like take this as an invitation. You go, okay, you know what, Lord? Like you're right. Like there's some truth in this, God. Like and Lord, like I want to change. Like I don't want to just use you. Dang, that's like I want to love you. You know.
Yep.
I really hope people take it and go that way with it than anything else. Yeah.
I do too. And I hope that people, if they're finding themselves in a place of, I don't think I agree and I'm in a different place and I have a different viewpoint, rather than being defensive, they kind of take the attitude that you did and say, well, let me just go find out more. Let me go read that. So maybe reach out to us, like reach out in the comments and shoot us a note and say, hey, no, what you guys had to say, I don't agree, but I'd love to hear more about your side and why you guys say that. And I would probably want to know more about theirs.
Yeah. Oh, me too. Yeah. Those conversations are always the best. Because they just like, for them and for me, right? Because like I always learn and grow a ton, and typically the person I'm talking to, they also like they grow, and it leads into more conversation, and then it leads to freedom, right? And then for them and for me, it leads to true freedom, not just Christian bondage,
Right. And it only happens also when you're sincere about really just wanting to hear the other side and really get to know why they think the way they think. When you approach it with, okay, let me just pretend so that I can sneak in the back door and convince you that I'm really right, then you don't get what you just described. You don't have those moments of like, hey, there's something real and genuine here and more than what we had before we started. So